You emerge from an egg the size of a pinhead, stuck to the underside of a leaf somewhere in the humid forests of Southeast Asia. The shell cracks, and you push through with legs barely thicker than spider silk. You're translucent, almost invisible, with a body so small you could fit on the tip of a pencil. But don't let that fool you. You're already equipped with everything you need to survive. Your mandibles work perfectly, your legs grip tight, and your one job is crystal clear. Eat everything in sight. The leaf beneath you stretches out like a green continent. It's your world, your grocery store, and your temporary home all rolled into one. You don't waste time exploring or getting your bearings. The moment you're free from the egg, you turn around and eat it. The shell is packed with nutrients, and wasting food isn't an option when you're this small. Every bite counts because everything out here is trying to kill you. Your first real meal is the leaf itself. You bite down, tearing through the surface with tiny mandibles that work like miniature scissors. The taste is bitter and waxy, but you don't care. You chew methodically, working your way across the surface, leaving behind a trail of holes. You're not picky about which part you eat. Edge, center, veins, it all goes down the same way. But you're not alone on this leaf. Other caterpillars hatched nearby, and they have the same idea you do. They're eating too, working their way across the green surface, and some of them are bigger than you. Size matters when you're this vulnerable. A larger caterpillar doesn't just take the best spots. It can push you around, force you to the edges where the leaf is tougher and less nutritious. You learn quickly to avoid the others when possible. When you can't avoid them, you eat faster. You don't stop to rest, don't pause to look around. Every second spent not eating is a second wasted, and waste isn't something you can afford. Your body burns through energy at an incredible rate, fueling the constant growth that will define the next few months of your existence. The leaf starts to disappear beneath you. What began as a perfect green surface is now riddled with holes, torn edges, and brown patches where too many caterpillars fed at once. Soon, there won't be enough left to sustain everyone. That's when the real competition begins. Some of the smaller caterpillars don't make it. They're too slow, too weak, or just unlucky. You find their dried out bodies occasionally, curled up near the stem where they gave up. You don't feel anything about it. Death is just part of the process, and sentiment doesn't fill an empty stomach. When the leaf is nearly gone, instinct tells you it's time to move. You crawl to the edge and start the dangerous journey to find another feeding spot. The world beyond your leaf is enormous and terrifying. Every surface could hide a predator. Every shadow might conceal something with sharp teeth and fast reflexes. You move carefully, testing each surface before committing your full weight. Your legs grip surprisingly well, allowing you to navigate upside down, along branches, and even hang from thin twigs when necessary. The journey feels endless, but eventually you find what you're looking for, a fresh leaf, untouched by other caterpillars. This one is different from your first meal. It's from a different plant species, with a slightly different taste and texture. But your digestive system adapts quickly. Within hours, you're tearing through this new food source with the same methodical precision you showed before. Days pass in this routine. Eat, grow, move, repeat. Your body changes constantly, stretching and expanding as you consume leaf after leaf. Your skin grows tight, like wearing clothes that are suddenly too small. The pressure builds until it becomes unbearable, and then something remarkable happens. Your skin splits open down the back, and you push forward, leaving behind the old casing like taking off a jacket. Underneath is a new layer of skin, slightly larger and stronger than before. This process is called molting, and you'll do it several times as you grow. Each molt marks a new stage of development, a step closer to something you can't even imagine yet. After your first molt, you notice changes beyond just size. Your colors are more vibrant, your patterns more distinct. You're still small compared to what you'll become, but you're no longer the tiny, almost invisible creature that hatched from the egg. You have presence now, substance. The feeding continues, but your appetite grows with your body. A single leaf that might have lasted days when you were newly hatched now disappears in hours. You move from plant to plant more frequently, always searching for fresh food, always needing more fuel for the incredible growth happening inside you. Predators become a constant concern as birds patrol the canopy above, their sharp eyes scanning for movement. Spiders wait in their webs, ready to wrap up anything unfortunate enough to get caught. Parasitic wasps fly through the air, looking for caterpillars to use as living nurseries for their young. You develop strategies to avoid these threats. You feed mostly at night when fewer predators are active. During the day, you hide in the shadows, pressed against branches, or tucked under leaves where your patterns help you blend in. Movement draws attention, so you stay perfectly still unless absolutely necessary. But hiding isn't always enough. One morning, you're resting under a broad leaf when you feel something land on your back. It's light, almost tickling, but instinct screams danger. You twist violently, trying to shake off whatever just made contact. A tiny wasp buzzes away, frustrated that its attempt to inject eggs into your body failed. If it had succeeded, you would have become a living host, slowly consumed from the inside as the wasp larvae grew. You got lucky this time. The close call reminds you that luck isn't a survival strategy. You become more cautious, more aware of your surroundings. You learn to recognize the warning signs, the shadow passing overhead that might be a bird, the vibration in a web that means a spider is nearby, the high-pitched buzz that signals a wasp in the area. Your second molt arrives faster than the first. The process is becoming routine, but it's still exhausting. Each time you shed your skin, you're vulnerable for hours while the new layer hardens. During these periods, you can't defend yourself properly, can't run if danger approaches. You have to trust that your hiding spot is secure and hope that nothing discovers you while you're helpless. The world looks different after your second molt. Colors are more vivid, details sharper. Your body has grown significantly, and you're starting to develop some of the features that will define your later stages. Small bumps appear along your sides, the beginnings of the tubercles that will eventually make you look like a tiny dragon. Food requirements increase dramatically. You're no longer content with just any leaf. You've developed preferences for certain plants that provide better nutrition. Some leaves are tougher and require more effort to chew, but they're packed with the proteins and minerals your growing body craves. The forest around you is alive with sounds and movement. Other insects go about their business. Birds call from the canopy, and the constant rustle of wind through leaves creates a background symphony. But you're focused entirely on your own needs, your own survival. Everything else is just noise. You encounter other atlas moth caterpillars occasionally. Most interactions are neutral. You simply avoid each other and continue feeding. But sometimes, competition for the best food sources leads to brief confrontations. You've grown large enough now that you don't automatically back down from smaller caterpillars. Size brings confidence, and confidence brings better access to resources. Your feeding patterns become more sophisticated. You learn which parts of leaves are most nutritious, which plants are easiest to digest, and which feeding spots are safest from predators. Experience teaches you things that instinct alone couldn't provide, but growth comes with its own challenges. Your increased size makes you more visible to predators, but it also makes you a more worthwhile target. A bird that might ignore a tiny caterpillar will definitely notice one that's several inches long and packed with protein. You develop new defensive behaviors. When threatened, you rear up on your back legs, making yourself appear larger and more intimidating. Your head movements become more aggressive, designed to startle potential predators. These behaviors won't stop a determined bird, but they might buy you the few seconds needed to escape. The third molt approaches, and with it comes a sense of anticipation you don't fully understand. Your body is preparing for something significant, something that will change everything about your existence. But for now, you're still focused on the immediate needs, finding food, avoiding danger, growing stronger. Each day brings new challenges and new victories. You survive encounters that would have killed you weeks earlier. You find food sources that sustain you for days at a time. You grow larger, stronger, more resilient. The forest continues its ancient rhythms around you, indifferent to your struggles and triumphs. Seasons shift subtly in the tropical climate, bringing changes in rainfall and temperature that affect plant growth and predator behavior. You adapt to these changes without conscious thought, guided by instincts honed over millions of years of evolution. Your journey is far from over. The caterpillar stage is just the beginning of something much more extraordinary. But you don't know that yet. Right now, your entire universe consists of leaves to eat, threats to avoid, and the constant drive to grow. Everything else is just preparation for a transformation you can't even imagine. Your third molt is different. The pressure builds like before, but this time something feels wrong, or maybe right in a way you don't understand yet. Your skin splits along familiar lines, but as you push forward, your body feels heavier, more substantial. The new skin underneath is thicker, with pronounced ridges and bumps that weren't there before. You've crossed a threshold. You're no longer just a growing caterpillar. You're becoming something else entirely. Your tubercles have developed into prominent spikes along your sides, giving you an almost alien appearance. Your head is massive now, equipped with powerful mandibles that can tear through the toughest leaves. You look like a creature from another world. The change isn't just cosmetic. Your appetite has become absolutely voracious. You can strip entire branches bare in a single night, leaving behind nothing but skeletal stems. The delicate nibbling of your early days is gone, replaced by systematic destruction. You're an eating machine, processing incredible amounts of plant matter and converting it into body mass at an alarming rate. Other insects give you space now. Your size alone is intimidating, but there's something else, a presence that warns potential competitors to stay away. You're not just another caterpillar anymore. You're apex among your kind, a force that reshapes the small ecosystem around you. Finding enough food becomes a constant challenge. You've outgrown single leaves, single branches, sometimes even single trees. You travel further now, covering distances that would have been impossible when you were small. Your powerful legs carry you across gaps, between branches, up vertical surfaces, even across the forest floor when necessary. The ground is dangerous territory. It's where the real predators live. The ones too big to bother with tiny caterpillars, but perfectly willing to make a meal of something your size. You move quickly when you have to cross open spaces, your many legs working in perfect coordination to carry your substantial bulk as fast as possible. But sometimes speed isn't enough. You're crossing a fallen log one evening when something erupts from the leaf litter below. It's a spider, but not the small web builders you've learned to avoid. This one is massive, with legs that span wider than your entire body and fangs that glisten with venom. It moves with terrifying speed, covering the distance between you in seconds. You rear up on your back legs, displaying your full size and the intimidating spikes along your sides. Your head weaves back and forth, mandibles clicking in what you hope sounds threatening. The spider pauses, assessing this unexpected show of defiance. For a moment, neither of you moves. Then the spider strikes. Its front legs shoot forward, trying to grab you, but you're ready. You twist to the side, using your bulk to your advantage, and bring your powerful mandibles down on one of its legs. The crunch is satisfying, and the spider recoils with what might be pain or surprise. You don't wait to find out which. You launch yourself forward, all your legs working together to carry you away from the encounter as quickly as possible. Behind you, the spider doesn't give chase. Maybe you hurt it more than you thought, or maybe it decided you weren't worth the effort. Either way, you've survived another close call. These encounters are becoming more frequent as you grow larger. Your increased size makes you visible to predators that never noticed you before, but it also gives you options you didn't have when you were small. You can fight back now, at least sometimes. You can intimidate smaller threats and survive encounters that would have been instantly fatal weeks ago. Your fourth molt arrives with less warning than the previous ones. You're feeding on a particularly nutritious vine when the familiar tightness begins. But this time, the sensation is accompanied by something new, a deep, almost cellular knowledge that this will be your final molt as a caterpillar. The process takes longer than before. Your body works harder to shed the old skin, struggling with the increased bulk and the complex changes happening underneath. When you finally emerge, you're transformed. Your size is impressive now, nearly 6 inches long and thick as a human thumb. Your colors have deepened into rich greens and browns with intricate patterns that help you blend into the forest shadows. But the most significant change is internal. Your feeding behavior shifts dramatically. Instead of the constant, voracious eating that defined your previous stages, you become more selective, more deliberate. You're still growing, but your body is beginning to prepare for something else entirely. You start seeking out specific plants, ones you've never shown interest in before. Your instincts guide you toward leaves with particular chemical compounds, nutrients that will be essential for the transformation ahead. You don't understand why these plants suddenly seem so appealing. You just know you need them. The forest feels different now. You move through it with a new awareness, like you're seeing it for the first time. Colors seem more significant, patterns more meaningful. You're drawn to certain locations, sheltered spots with specific combinations of light, moisture, and protection that you never noticed before. Your behavior becomes increasingly restless. You'll find a perfect feeding spot, consume what you need, then inexplicably move on to search for something else. You're not sure what you're looking for, but you'll know it when you find it. The compulsion grows stronger each day, an internal pressure that has nothing to do with hunger. Other caterpillars you encounter seem smaller now, less significant. You're operating on a different level, driven by urges they don't share. Some are still in their earlier stages, focused entirely on growth and feeding. You remember being like that, but it feels like a lifetime ago. The chemical changes in your body accelerate. Your digestive system begins to slow down, processing food differently. Your silk glands, dormant since you were tiny, start producing again. But this isn't the simple silk you used to secure yourself to leaves when you were small. This is something entirely new, stronger, and more complex. You begin testing surfaces differently, not for food, but for structural integrity. You tap branches with your legs, assessing their strength and stability. You examine the angles where branches meet trunks, looking for natural supports that could bear significant weight. You're preparing for something, even though you don't consciously understand what. The urge to find the perfect location becomes overwhelming. You travel further in a single day than you used to travel in a week, covering enormous distances through the canopy. Your powerful legs carry you effortlessly across obstacles that would have been impossible barriers when you were smaller. Finally, you find it. The spot calls to you in a way you can't explain. A sturdy branch junction, about 20 feet above the ground, sheltered by dense foliage, but with enough space to maneuver. The bark texture feels right under your legs, rough enough to provide good grip, but not so rough as to be uncomfortable. The angle of the branches creates natural protection from rain and wind. This is it. This is where everything will change. You spend hours exploring every inch of your chosen location, testing each surface, memorizing each detail. Your silk glands work overtime, producing experimental threads that you use to test anchor points. The silk is incredibly strong, stronger than anything you produced as a small caterpillar. Your feeding slows dramatically. You're no longer driven by the constant hunger that defined your existence for months. Instead, you consume only what's necessary, focusing on specific nutrients that your changing body requires. Your digestive system is preparing to shut down entirely, redirecting energy toward the massive transformation ahead. The forest continues its rhythms around you, but you're becoming disconnected from it. Other creatures that once seemed like threats or competitors now barely register in your awareness. Birds fly overhead without causing the automatic fear response that kept you alive for so long. You're transitioning into something that operates by entirely different rules. Your body begins producing chemicals you've never created before. Hormones flood your system, triggering cascading changes in every organ, every system. Your nervous system starts rewiring itself. Your muscles begin breaking down and rebuilding in new configurations. Even your basic cellular structure is preparing for radical transformation. But you don't understand any of this consciously. You only know that something monumental is approaching, something that will redefine your entire existence. Every instinct you've developed, every survival skill you've learned, every experience that shaped you as a caterpillar is about to become irrelevant. The final preparations begin. You stop eating entirely. For the first time since you hatched, food holds no appeal. Your massive mandibles, which spent months tearing through countless leaves, hang idle. Your digestive system, which processed tons of plant matter, begins shutting down section by section. This isn't starvation. This is preparation. Your body starts consuming itself from the inside. Muscle tissue breaks down into amino acids. Fat reserves dissolve into energy. Organs that served you well as a caterpillar begin dismantling themselves, their components recycled into something entirely different. You're not dying. You're reorganizing at the molecular level. The silk production kicks into overdrive. Your glands work around the clock, producing thread after thread of the strongest natural fiber on Earth. You begin the most important construction project of your life. Each strand must be perfectly placed, each anchor point precisely positioned. There's no room for mistakes. You start at the top of your chosen branch junction, laying down the foundation threads. Your body moves with purpose you've never felt before, guided by genetic programming that's remained dormant until this moment. You know exactly how to angle each strand, how to create the support structure that will hold everything together. The silk flows from your spinneret in continuous streams. You weave back and forth, up and down, creating a complex three-dimensional framework. The work is exhausting, but you can't stop. Something deep inside drives you forward, past fatigue, past any conscious thought of rest. Hours pass, then days. You barely pause in your construction, occasionally stopping only to reposition yourself for better leverage. The structure grows around you, taking shape in ways that seem impossible. You're building something you've never seen before, yet every movement feels completely natural. Other forest creatures watch your work with curiosity. Birds perch nearby, tilting their heads as they observe the methodical construction. Insects crawl over the growing structure, investigating this new addition to their world. But you ignore them all. Nothing exists except the work, the endless weaving that will determine your fate. Your body changes as you build. The fat reserves that sustained your enormous appetite begin disappearing. Your skin starts shifting colors, becoming less vibrant, more muted. Your movements slow as energy reserves dwindle, but the silk production never stops. Every available calorie gets converted into thread. The outer shell takes form first. You create a tough, protective barrier that will shield what's inside from weather, predators, and time itself. The silk forms layers upon layers, each one adding strength and insulation. What you're building isn't just a shelter, it's a fortress designed to protect the most vulnerable period of your existence. Inside this outer shell, you begin constructing something more delicate. Fine silk threads create an inner chamber, perfectly sized and positioned. Every surface must be smooth, every angle precisely calculated. This inner space will be your world for the next phase of your life, and it must be perfect. As you work, your body continues its internal transformation. Systems you've relied on for months begin shutting down permanently. Your powerful legs, which carried you across vast distances, start weakening. Your mandibles, which consumed forests worth of vegetation, begin softening. You're becoming something that no longer needs these tools. The construction nears completion. You've created a masterpiece of engineering, a structure that's simultaneously incredibly strong and perfectly lightweight. The outer layers can withstand storms and predators, while the inner chamber provides the exact environment needed for what comes next. Your movements become increasingly sluggish. The energy reserves that fueled months of growth and weeks of construction are nearly exhausted, but you have just enough left for the final phase. You position yourself in the exact center of your creation, head pointing toward what will become the exit. The last threads are the most important. You seal yourself inside, creating the final barrier between your old life and whatever comes next. Each strand must be perfect, each connection absolutely secure. There's no going back now. Once this is finished, your life as a caterpillar ends forever. The final thread falls into place. You're completely enclosed now, suspended in the darkness of your own creation. The outside world disappears entirely. No light penetrates the thick silk walls. No sound reaches your ears. You exist in perfect isolation, cut off from everything you've ever known. Your body begins the real transformation. Cells that formed your caterpillar structure start breaking down systematically. Your nervous system dissolves and rebuilds itself in an entirely new configuration. Your digestive tract, which processed endless amounts of vegetation, disappears completely. Your legs, your mandibles, your eyes, everything that made you a caterpillar melts away. But this isn't destruction, it's renovation on an impossible scale. As the old structures break down, new ones begin forming in their place. Wings develop where legs used to be. Antennae replace the simple eyes that guided you through your feeding frenzy. A completely different nervous system, assembles itself from the dissolved components of the old one. Days pass in this suspended state. Your consciousness, such as it was, fades into something like a dream. Memories of leaf eating and predator dodging become distant and meaningless. The driving hunger that defined your existence simply disappears, replaced by something you can't yet understand. Inside your silk fortress, chemical processes work with precision that defies belief. Genes that lay dormant throughout your caterpillar life activate for the first time. New proteins are manufactured. Different hormones flood your developing system. Your entire genetic program shifts from growth and consumption to something entirely different. The transformation isn't uniform. It happens in waves, with some systems completing their changes while others are just beginning. Your wing structures form first, delicate membranes that fold and compress in ways that seem impossible. Your new eyes develop next, compound structures capable of seeing things your caterpillar eyes never could. Your new digestive system bears no resemblance to the one you used to process leaves. It's designed for an entirely different type of feeding, optimized for liquids rather than solid plant matter. You don't understand this yet, but your relationship with food is about to change completely. The silk cocoon that protects you begins to thin in specific places. Enzymes produced by your transforming body start dissolving predetermined weak points in the structure. These will become your escape routes when the time comes. But that time is still far away. More days pass in darkness and silence. Your new body takes shape piece by piece, system by system. What emerges from this process will share almost nothing with the caterpillar that went in. Different nervous system, different sensory organs, different instincts, different purposes. You're becoming something that operates by completely different rules. The changes accelerate toward the end. Your new wings, compressed and folded against your body, begin developing their final patterns. Colors emerge from what was previously just clear membrane. Intricate designs appear, each one precisely positioned according to genetic instructions that have waited months to activate. Your antennae, which will become your primary navigation tools, complete their development. They're incredibly sophisticated organs, capable of detecting chemical signals from enormous distances. They'll guide you through a world that your caterpillar senses could never have comprehended. The final phase approaches. Your new body is nearly complete, compressed and folded inside the silk cocoon like an impossibly complex piece of origami. Every wing scale is in position, every antenna segment perfectly formed. You're ready for a world that requires none of the skills you spent months developing, but you don't know this yet. In your suspended state, you have no awareness of the magnitude of change happening inside your own body. You exist in a liminal space between what you were and what you're becoming, disconnected from both realities. The cocoon that has protected you through this impossible transformation begins to weaken. Enzymes continue dissolving the predetermined exit points. Chemical signals in your developing brain start preparing for consciousness to return. The long sleep is almost over. Soon, very soon, you'll face the challenge of breaking free from the fortress you built around yourself. But the creature that emerges won't remember building it. That was someone else entirely, someone whose existence is about to end so yours can begin. The darkness inside your cocoon remains absolute, but change is accelerating. Every system in your body is preparing for a completely different existence. The forest waits outside, unchanged and eternal, ready to witness the emergence of something that bears no resemblance to the voracious caterpillar that disappeared into the silk fortress weeks ago. The first crack appears without warning. A tiny split in the silk wall that has been your entire universe for weeks. Light, actual, real light, pierces through the darkness for the first time since you sealed yourself inside. It's blindingly bright after so long in absolute blackness, but something deep in your transformed brain recognizes it as exactly what you need. Your body responds with instincts you've never felt before. Muscles you didn't know you possessed begin contracting in coordinated waves. These aren't the simple, powerful movements of your caterpillar legs. This is something entirely different, delicate, precise, almost surgical in its execution. You're not breaking out, you're emerging. The crack widens as you push against it. The silk that once seemed impossibly strong now gives way to your carefully applied pressure. You've developed specialized structures for exactly this moment, cutting edges and chemical solvents that make escape not just possible, but inevitable. Your body knows exactly how to dismantle the fortress you built around yourself. More light floods in as the opening expands. Your new eyes, compound structures with thousands of individual lenses, begin processing visual information in ways your caterpillar brain never could. Colors exist that you've never seen before. Patterns emerge from what used to be shapeless blurs. The forest around you suddenly makes sense in completely new ways. Your antennae push through the opening first, immediately flooded with chemical information. The air carries thousands of distinct scents, each one telling a different story. Some signal danger, others opportunity. Many carry messages you don't consciously understand yet, but that trigger deep, genetic responses throughout your nervous system. You push harder against the cocoon walls. Your head emerges next, then your thorax. The process is exhausting in a way that's completely different from caterpillar fatigue. This isn't the simple tiredness that comes from eating and growing. This is the profound exhaustion of being reborn, of every system in your body activating simultaneously after weeks of dormancy. Your wings are still compressed against your body, folded in impossible configurations that allowed them to fit inside the tight cocoon. They're damp and soft, nothing like the rigid structures they'll become. As they contact the outside air for the first time, they begin a transformation almost as dramatic as the one you just completed inside your silk fortress. The final push breaks you completely free. You tumble out of the cocoon that protected you through your metamorphosis, landing on the branch with legs that work in entirely new ways. These limbs are designed for gripping and positioning, not for that endless walking that defined your caterpillar existence. Every step feels strange and unfamiliar. Your wings begin expanding immediately. Fluid pumps through delicate veins, inflating the membranes like balloons. What started as compressed, wrinkled tissue transforms into broad, flat surfaces covered in intricate patterns. The process is mesmerizing to watch if you could see it from the outside, but from your perspective, it's simply something that must happen. The expansion continues for what feels like hours. Your wings grow larger and larger, reaching proportions that seem impossible for something that just emerged from such a small space. The patterns become more defined as they stretch, complex designs that will serve purposes you don't understand yet. Eye spots appear, lines form, colors intensify. You hang motionless during this crucial period. Movement could damage the delicate wing membranes before they harden properly. Every fiber in your body wants to explore, to test these new sensory organs, to understand what you've become. But instinct holds you perfectly still, waiting for the transformation to complete. The forest continues around you, as if nothing has happened. Birds call from the canopy, insects buzz through the air, leaves rustle in the breeze. But you're experiencing all of these familiar sounds through completely different sensory equipment. Your hearing has changed, your vision has transformed, even your sense of touch operates by new rules. Your wings reach their full size and begin the critical hardening process. The soft, vulnerable membranes gradually stiffen as structural proteins lock into place. What was once flexible tissue becomes a rigid framework capable of supporting your weight in flight. The patterns that emerge during expansion now serve their true purpose: communication, camouflage, and survival. Finally, after hours of waiting, your wings are ready. You flex them experimentally, feeling the resistance as they push against the air. The sensation is unlike anything from your previous life. These aren't tools for manipulation or locomotion in the way your caterpillar legs were. These are instruments of flight, designed for a completely different relationship with the world. Your first attempt at movement is clumsy. Your legs, so different from what you remember, struggle to coordinate. Your balance is completely off. Your body is now much lighter, with most of your mass concentrated in different places. Everything about basic movement has to be relearned from the beginning. But relearning happens quickly. Your new nervous system is optimized for rapid adaptation. Within minutes, you're moving with increasing confidence along the branch that supported your cocoon. Your legs work together in new patterns. Your antennae sweep back and forth, gathering chemical information. Your eyes track movement with precision you never possessed before. The urge to fly builds gradually. It starts as a vague restlessness, a sense that staying on this branch isn't what you're supposed to be doing. Your wings twitch involuntarily, testing the air currents that flow around you. Something in your brain is calculating wind speed, air density, flight vectors, concepts that would have been meaningless to your caterpillar mind. You spread your wings wide for the first time. The span is enormous. Broader than your entire caterpillar body was long. The patterns catch the filtered sunlight, creating displays of color and shadow that seem to shift and move with every slight adjustment. You're not just a creature now. You're a work of art come to life. The branch beneath your feet suddenly feels confining. Your wings beat once, experimentally, creating a downward rush of air that lifts your body slightly. The sensation is intoxicating. For a brief moment, you're supported by nothing but your own effort and the invisible medium of the atmosphere. This is what you were built for. Your second wing beat is more confident. Your feet leave the branch entirely for a split second before you settle back down. But that moment of true flight, however brief, triggers something fundamental in your transformed brain. This isn't just movement. This is freedom in a form your caterpillar existence never could have comprehended. The chemical signals in the air become more insistent. Your antennae detect scents that call to something deep in your genetic programming. There are others like you out there, others who have completed the same impossible transformation you just finished. They're communicating in a language of molecules that your new sensory organs can read perfectly. Some of these chemical messages carry urgency. Time is limited in ways that your caterpillar brain, focused on endless growth and feeding, never understood. Your adult life won't be measured in months of gradual development. It will be measured in days, maybe weeks, of intense activity with a single, overwhelming purpose. You launch yourself into the air without conscious decision. One moment, you're perched on the familiar branch. The next, you're airborne, wings beating in complex patterns that coordinate automatically. The ground falls away beneath you as you climb through the forest canopy toward the open sky above. Your flight is nothing like walking. Your caterpillar locomotion was about overcoming resistance, pushing through obstacles, gripping surfaces, applying force to move forward. Flight is about working with invisible forces, reading air currents, using updrafts and wind patterns to move in 3 dimensions simultaneously. Your wings adjust constantly as you fly. Micro corrections in angle and beat frequency respond to changes in air pressure and wind direction that you detect through organs you didn't know you possessed. Your body has become a sophisticated aircraft, optimized for efficiency and maneuverability in ways that human engineers can barely comprehend. The forest canopy spreads out below you like a green carpet. From this altitude, you can see patterns and connections that were invisible during your ground-based caterpillar existence. Clearings form networks, rivers create highways, different tree species cluster in ways that make ecological sense from above, but were meaningless from below. Other flying insects share the airspace with you. Some are potential threats, predators that see you as food despite your impressive size. Others are simply going about their own business, navigating the 3 dimensional highways of the forest atmosphere. A few trigger recognition responses in your brain, distant relatives, creatures that emerged from similar transformations in cocoons of their own. But none of them are what you're really looking for. The chemical signals that drew you into the air are still there, still calling to something fundamental in your transformed nature. Your antennae sweep back and forth as you fly, processing an incredible volume of olfactory information with each beat of your wings. The sun begins to set as you patrol the forest airspace. Your compound eyes adapt to the changing light conditions automatically, shifting their sensitivity to make the most of whatever illumination is available. Night vision was never important to your leaf-eating caterpillar existence, but it's crucial to what you've become. As darkness falls, your flying patterns change. You're no longer exploring randomly. You're hunting, not for food. Your relationship with nutrition has transformed completely, but for something infinitely more important. The chemical signals become stronger in the cooler night air, carrying further and with greater precision. Your flight path becomes more purposeful. You're following a scent trail now, one that speaks to every cell in your transformed body. It leads you away from the familiar territory where you spent your caterpillar months, out into regions of the forest you've never seen before, but distance means nothing now. Your wings can carry you further in a single night than you traveled in your entire ground-based existence. The trail strengthens as you follow it. Your antennae lock onto the signal with increasing precision, guiding your flight with accuracy that borders on telepathic. Whatever is producing this chemical message is close now, very close. Your wings beat faster as anticipation builds in neural pathways that didn't exist weeks ago. You're no longer the same creature that methodically consumed leaves for months. You're not even related to that creature in any meaningful sense, except for the physical matter you share. Your purposes, your instincts, your entire relationship with the world has been rewritten from the ground up. The caterpillar died inside the cocoon. What emerged is something entirely new. The forest spreads endlessly around you as you fly through the night air, following chemical signals toward a destiny that your caterpillar mind never could have imagined. Your wings carry you forward with effortless power, each beat bringing you closer to the purpose for which your entire impossible transformation was designed. But you don't know what that purpose is yet. You only know that it's calling to you through the darkness, carried on wind currents that your sophisticated sensory organs can read like a map. The night is young, your wings are strong, and somewhere ahead in the vast forest, something is waiting for you to find it. Your adult life has only just begun. The chemical trail leads you deeper into unfamiliar territory. Your antennae track the scent with laser precision, guiding you through air currents that would have been impossible to navigate as a caterpillar. Each wing beat carries you further from everything you once knew, but distance has no meaning now. You're following something more fundamental than geography. The signal grows stronger. Your compound eyes pick up movement ahead, something large fluttering between the trees. Your heart rate increases, though you don't understand why. This isn't fear or excitement in any way your caterpillar brain could have processed. This is something entirely new, an anticipation that exists at the cellular level. You adjust your flight path, angling toward the movement. As you get closer, your antennae confirm what your instincts already knew. It's another Atlas moth, but different from you in crucial ways. Larger, with subtly different wing patterns and a chemical signature that triggers responses throughout your nervous system. This is what you've been searching for without knowing it. She's perched on a broad leaf, wings spread wide to catch the moonlight filtering through the canopy. Her patterns are more elaborate than yours, her colors deeper and more complex. When she detects your approach, her antennae twitch in your direction, reading the chemical messages you're broadcasting with every breath. You land nearby, suddenly uncertain. Your caterpillar existence never prepared you for social interaction beyond simple competition for food, but your transformed brain carries genetic programming that knows exactly what to do. You spread your wings in specific patterns, displaying the eye spots and intricate designs that developed during your emergence. She responds with movements of her own. Her wings flutter in sequences that communicate things you understand without conscious thought. This is a language older than words, coded into the very structure of your species. Every gesture, every wing position, every chemical release carries meaning that bypasses rational thought entirely. The courtship dance begins. You circle each other in the air, wings beating in complex rhythms that create turbulence patterns only another Atlas moth could interpret. Sometimes you fly in synchronized formations, sometimes in elaborate chases that weave between branches and around tree trunks. Your movements are precise, instinctual, perfect. Hours pass in this aerial ballet. Your wings never tire, sustained by energy reserves you didn't know you possessed. This isn't the simple mechanical flight you use to reach this location. This is performance art written in three-dimensional space, with stakes you're only beginning to understand. Finally, she accepts your display. The moment of recognition is electric, triggering cascades of chemical responses throughout both your bodies. You land together on the same branch where she waited, and for the first time since your transformation, you're not alone. The isolation that defined your cocoon existence dissolves completely. What happens next is brief, but monumentally important. Your entire adult existence has been building toward this moment, though you only understand that now. Every system in your transformed body was optimized for this single interaction. The dancing, the chemical communication, the precise timing, all of it serves this one crucial purpose. When it's over, she flies away without ceremony. The connection that seemed so intense moments before dissolves as quickly as it formed. You watch her disappear into the darkness, knowing somehow that you won't see her again. Your role in her story is complete, just as hers is in yours. But your story isn't finished. Something has changed inside you, a fundamental shift that affects how you perceive the world around you. The urgent chemical signals that drew you across vast distances of forest are gone, replaced by different impulses. You're no longer searching for something outside yourself. You fly aimlessly for a while, testing your wings against the night air. The forest looks the same as before, but your relationship with it has transformed again. You're not hunting now, not seeking. You're simply existing in a state that has no equivalent in your caterpillar experience. Food becomes important again, but in an entirely different way. Your new digestive system can't process the solid plant matter that sustained your previous form. Instead, you're drawn to sources of liquid nutrition, tree sap, nectar, fluids that seep from wounded bark. Your feeding apparatus has transformed into something designed for these specific resources. Finding food requires different strategies than your caterpillar existence demanded. Instead of simply consuming whatever plant you happen to be on, you must actively seek out sources of liquid nutrition. Your compound eyes scan for the telltale signs of sap flow, while your antennae detect the chemical signatures of fermentation and decay that often accompany suitable feeding sites. You discover a broken branch where sweet sap oozes from the wound. Your proboscis, a structure that didn't exist during your caterpillar phase, extends to reach the nutritious fluid. The feeding process is delicate, almost surgical compared to the aggressive leaf shredding of your previous form. You sip carefully, extracting exactly what you need without waste. The sugar rush from the sap energizes your flight muscles in ways that plant matter never could. This liquid fuel is perfect for your transformed metabolism, providing quick energy for the demanding aerial lifestyle you now lead. Your body processes it efficiently, converting it immediately into the power needed for sustained flight. As you feed, other night creatures go about their business around you. Some are potential threats. Bats patrol the airspace with echolocation systems designed to detect flying insects like you. Others are simply neighbors in the complex ecosystem of the nocturnal forest. Your presence among them feels natural now, part of the intricate web of relationships that define this nighttime world. Your feeding finished, you return to the air. But flying feels different now, less urgent than before. The desperate seeking that drove your initial flights has been replaced by something more like contentment. You patrol familiar territories, following flight paths that become routine through repetition. Days pass in this new rhythm. You feed when necessary, rest during the hottest parts of the day, and fly through the cooler hours of evening and early morning. Your life has structure now, but it's nothing like the constant eating that defined your caterpillar existence. This is more contemplative, more aware of the larger patterns that govern forest life. You encounter other atlas moths occasionally. Some interactions are neutral, simple recognition, followed by separate flight paths. Others trigger responses similar to your first courtship encounter, though none quite match that initial intensity. Each meeting serves purposes that operate below the level of conscious thought, part of genetic programming that ensures the continuation of your species. Your territory expands as you become more confident in flight. What started as random exploration evolves into systematic mapping of the forest canopy. You learn which areas provide the best feeding opportunities, which offer the safest roosting spots during daylight hours, which routes allow for efficient travel between important locations. The forest reveals itself to you in ways that were impossible during your ground-based existence. From the air, you can see how different plant communities connect and interact. Water sources that were invisible from below create green corridors that stand out clearly from altitude. Animal paths form networks that make sense only when viewed from above. Your compound eyes adapt to these new perspectives automatically. What once seemed like chaos from your caterpillar viewpoint now resolves into comprehensible patterns. The forest isn't just a collection of individual trees and plants. It's a single, interconnected system that operates according to rules you're beginning to understand. Weather becomes crucial in ways your protected caterpillar life never experienced. Rain can ground you for hours, forcing you to find shelter and wait for conditions to improve. Wind patterns that were meaningless when you crawled along branches now determine your flight efficiency and safety. Temperature fluctuations affect your muscle performance and energy requirements. You learn to read the subtle signs that predict weather changes. The way light filters through the canopy tells you about cloud cover above. Changes in humidity register through specialized organs that didn't exist in your previous form. Even the behavior of other flying creatures provides information about atmospheric conditions you can't directly perceive. Your roosting behavior becomes increasingly sophisticated. During daylight hours, when flight is more dangerous due to bird predation, you seek out specific locations that provide optimal camouflage. Your wing patterns, which seemed purely decorative during emergence, now serve their true purpose as camouflage systems that make you nearly invisible against tree bark and dead leaves. The eye spots on your wings aren't just for display during courtship encounters. When threatened, you can flash them in patterns that startle potential predators, creating crucial seconds for escape. Your entire body has become an integrated defense system, with every feature serving multiple survival functions. Time moves differently in your adult form. The slow, steady progression of growth that characterized your caterpillar months has been replaced by more intense but shorter duration experiences. Each day brings concentrated activity, followed by periods of rest and recovery. Your lifespan operates on an accelerated schedule that makes every moment significant. You begin to notice changes in your own body as days pass. Your flight muscles, which seemed inexhaustible during your first nights in the air, start requiring longer recovery periods. Your wings, once perfectly flexible, develop tiny tears and worn spots from repeated use. These aren't injuries in the way your caterpillar form might have experienced damage. They're signs of natural aging in a body designed for brief but intense activity. Your feeding behavior changes as well. The liquid nutrition that once provided immediate energy now takes longer to process. Your digestive efficiency decreases gradually, requiring you to spend more time seeking food sources and less time in flight. The balance between energy intake and expenditure shifts in ways that affect every aspect of your daily routine. Despite these changes, or perhaps because of them, your awareness of the forest around you deepens. You notice seasonal shifts that were invisible during your caterpillar focus on individual leaves. Flowering patterns affect nectar availability. Temperature changes influence its SAP production in the trees you depend on for nutrition. The entire ecosystem pulses with rhythms that your transformed senses can detect and interpret. Your interactions with other forest creatures become more nuanced. Birds that once seemed like simple threats now reveal themselves as complex individuals with their own territories and behavior patterns. You learn to predict their movements, to avoid their hunting areas during peak activity periods, to share airspace when conditions make conflict unlikely. The nocturnal community of flying insects becomes familiar through repeated encounters. Some species follow similar flight patterns to yours, creating temporary aggregations around particularly rich feeding sites. Others maintain strict territorial boundaries that you learn to respect. A few show curiosational behavior, approaching you with apparent curiosity about your impressive size and distinctive appearance. Your chemical communication abilities continue developing throughout your adult life. The basic pheromone production that enabled your initial courtship encounters evolves into more sophisticated signaling. You can mark territory indicate food sources, even communicate simple warnings to other atlas moths through scent trails that persist for hours after your passage. These chemical messages create an invisible network of communication that spans vast areas of the forest. Information flows through this system faster than any individual moth could fly, creating a collective awareness that benefits the entire population. Your participation in this network makes you part of something larger than your individual existence. The forest itself seems to acknowledge your presence in ways that weren't apparent during your caterpillar phase. Certain plants respond to your feeding by increasing sap production, as if recognizing the mutual benefit of supporting healthy moth populations. Trees that serve as regular roosting sites develop bark patterns that provide better camouflage, though whether this is coincidence or adaptation is unclear. Your memory systems, completely rebuilt during metamorphosis, prove capable of storing enormous amounts of spatial and temporal information. You remember not just where good feeding sites are located, but when they're most productive, which routes provide the fastest access, how weather patterns affect their availability. This accumulated knowledge makes you increasingly efficient as days pass. Navigation abilities that seemed magical during your first flights now feel natural and automatic. Your internal compass system uses landmarks, celestial cues, and magnetic field detection to maintain perfect orientation even during long-distance flights through unfamiliar territory. Getting lost simply isn't possible with the sensory equipment your transformation provided. The night sky becomes as familiar as the forest canopy once was to your caterpillar existence. Star patterns provide navigation references that work even when ground landmarks are obscured. Moon phases affect your activity levels and feeding behavior in ways controlled by biological rhythms established during metamorphosis. You're connected to cosmic cycles that operate far beyond the scale of individual trees and leaves. Your adult life settles into patterns that feel both routine and meaningful. Each night brings flights that serve multiple purposes: feeding, territory maintenance, social interaction, exploration. Each day brings rest periods that allow for recovery and processing of the previous night's experiences. The rhythm feels sustainable, though you're dimly aware that sustainability isn't the point. Something is changing in the forest around you. Subtle shifts in temperature, humidity, and daylight duration signal the approach of seasonal transitions. Your body responds to these changes with increasing urgency, though you don't consciously understand why. Instincts that have remained dormant throughout your adult existence begin stirring to life. The chemical signals you detect from other moths carry different messages now: less courtship communication, more territorial marking and resource claiming. The social dynamics of the Atlas moth population are shifting in response to environmental cues that operate below the threshold of conscious awareness. Your own behavior becomes more focused, more purposeful. Random exploration gives way to systematic coverage of specific territories. Your feeding becomes more selective, concentrating on resources that provide particular nutrients your changing physiology requires. Even your flight patterns shift toward greater efficiency and conservation of energy. The forest prepares for change, and you prepare with it. Your transformed body, which seemed so perfectly adapted to adult life just weeks ago, begins showing signs of its own impending transformation. Not metamorphosis this time, but something simpler and more final. Your wings, once your greatest achievement and primary tool for survival, start showing their age. The intricate patterns fade slightly. The structural integrity decreases incrementally with each flight. You're still capable of impressive aerial maneuvers, but the effortless power of your early adult days has been replaced by more careful energy management. Your compound eyes, which opened up entire new ways of perceiving the world, begin losing some of their acuity. The thousands of individual lenses that created your comprehensive vision start showing signs of wear from constant use. Details that once stood out clearly now require more effort to resolve. Even your chemical communication systems show signs of change. The pheromone production that enabled complex social interactions becomes less precise, less intense. Your messages to other moths carry less information. Your reception of their signals becomes less reliable. The invisible network that connected you to your community starts to fray. But these changes don't feel like failures or breakdowns. They feel like completion, like the natural end of processes that were always meant to be temporary. Your adult form was never designed for long-term maintenance. It was optimized for intense activity over a brief period, and that period is drawing to its natural close. Your awareness of this approaching transition brings a strange kind of peace. The desperate urgency that drove your initial adult activities has been replaced by something more like satisfaction. You've accomplished what you were transformed to do. The specific purposes that justified your entire impossible metamorphosis have been fulfilled. The forest continues its eternal cycles around you, indifferent to your individual story, but somehow enhanced by your participation in it. New caterpillars are hatching somewhere in the canopy, beginning their own journeys of growth and transformation. The great wheel of life turns with or without your presence, but your time on it has added something unique to the pattern. Your flights become shorter, more focused on immediate needs rather than exploration or territory establishment. You rest more frequently, choosing roosting spots based on comfort rather than optimal camouflage. The aggressive survival instincts that kept you alive through weeks of adult existence begin to fade, replaced by something that feels almost like contentment. The chemical signals from other moths tell similar stories. The population as a whole is aging, moving toward the same natural conclusion that awaits you. It's not a tragedy or a failure. It's simply the way your species operates. Brief, intense adult lives followed by renewal through the next generation. You find yourself drawn to familiar locations, areas where you had particularly successful feeding sessions, roosting spots that provided especially good shelter, flight paths that offered spectacular views of the forest canopy. These return visits feel like farewells, though you don't consciously understand why. Your last flight takes you back toward the territory where you spent your caterpillar months. The trees look different from above than they did from your ground level perspective, but something about the area feels like home. You land on a branch near where your cocoon once hung, though you don't remember the specific location. The forest at dawn is beautiful in ways your caterpillar existence never could have appreciated. Light filters through the canopy in patterns that shift and change with every breath of wind. The air carries the scents of 1,000 different plants and creatures, each contributing to the complex chemical symphony that defines this ecosystem. You rest there as the sun rises, feeling the warmth penetrate your wings and energize your flight muscles one last time. Your compound eyes track the movement of other creatures beginning their daily activities. Birds call to each other across the canopy. Insects buzz through the warming air. Life continues in all its magnificent complexity. Your breathing slows gradually. Your heart rate decreases from the rapid rhythm that sustained your high-energy adult existence. Your wings fold against your body in a position that feels final and peaceful. The transformation that began when you hatched from an egg the size of a pinhead is finally complete. The forest accepts your quiet departure with the same indifference it showed your dramatic emergence. Other creatures will fill the ecological niche you're vacating. The trees will continue their slow growth untoward the canopy. The endless cycles of birth, growth, transformation, and renewal will continue without pause. But somewhere in the forest, eggs the size of pinheads cling to the undersides of leaves. Inside those eggs, new caterpillars are developing, carrying genetic instructions that include fragments of your own successful adaptations. Your story ends, but the larger story of which you were a part continues without interruption. Your contribution to that continuing story was brief but significant. You survived the vulnerable egg stage, grew through multiple molts, successfully completed metamorphosis, navigated the challenges of adult existence, and participated in the reproduction that ensures your species' survival. Every phase of your existence served purposes larger than your individual experience. The sun climbs higher through the forest canopy, warming the branch where you rest. Your body gradually cools, becoming part of the forest ecosystem in a different way than during your active life. Even in death, you contribute nutrients to the soil, support for the plants, food for the decomposers that keep the forest cycling through its eternal patterns. The branch that supports your final rest will outlive you by decades, continuing to grow and change long after your individual story has ended. But for a brief moment in its long existence, it served as the stage for the conclusion of an impossible journey from egg to caterpillar to adult moth. That journey, multiplied by countless individuals across countless generations, is what keeps the forest alive and vital. Your life as an atlas moth is over, but the forest continues. New eggs are hatching. New caterpillars are beginning their feeding frenzies. New cocoons are being constructed for transformations yet to come. The great cycle turns, carrying forward the genetic heritage you helped preserve through your own successful navigation of all life's stages. In the end, your individual existence was both insignificant and crucial, a single thread in a tapestry so vast and complex that no single creature could comprehend it, yet absolutely essential to the pattern's continuation. You lived fully within the constraints of your species' biology, fulfilling every function your transformation equipped you for. The morning light continues to warm the forest as your story ends, and countless others continue. Life as an atlas moth might be brief, but it's also magnificent in its intensity and perfect in its execution. From the tiniest egg to the most spectacular adult, every stage serves purposes that transcend individual survival and contribute to something infinitely larger and more enduring than any single creature could achieve alone. The forest remains still around your motionless form, but beneath the surface, change has already begun. Your body, which carried you through impossible transformations and brief but intense adult experiences, starts its final contribution to the ecosystem that sustained you. Bacteria and fungi that waited patiently during your active life now begin their own work, breaking down complex tissues into simpler compounds that will feed the soil. This isn't decay in any tragic sense. It's recycling on the most fundamental level. The proteins that powered your flight muscles become amino acids that nearby plants can absorb. The calcium from your exoskeleton dissolves slowly, providing minerals for growing roots. Even the intricate wing patterns that served you so well in life contribute their molecular components to the forest's endless cycles of renewal. Other creatures discover your remains within hours. Ants arrive first, their scouts detecting the chemical signatures of opportunity from impressive distances. They work with mechanical efficiency, dismantling and transporting what they can use back to their colonies. What seems like destruction is actually redistribution, your substance spreading through the forest ecosystem in ways that will support countless other lives. Beetles follow the ants, along with other decomposers that specialize in processing organic matter. Each species takes what it needs, leaving the rest for others in a sequence of utilization that wastes nothing. Your body becomes a temporary focal point for this community of recyclers, all of them playing essential roles in keeping the forest's nutrient cycles flowing smoothly. The tree that supported your final rest benefits directly from this process. Its roots extend through soil, enriched by countless previous generations of forest creatures, including many atlas moths like yourself. The minerals and nutrients your decomposition provides will fuel new growth, stronger branches, broader leaves that will shelter future caterpillars through their own vulnerable early stages. Meanwhile, in a completely different part of the forest, something remarkable is happening. The eggs you helped create weeks ago during your brief adult encounters are approaching their own moment of emergence. Each one contains genetic instructions that include successful adaptations from your lineage, traits that enabled you to survive when countless others didn't make it through their own transformations. These developing caterpillars don't know anything about you, of course. They have no awareness of the adult moth whose genetic contribution helped shape their potential. But they carry forward the biological wisdom earned through your successful navigation of every life stage, from vulnerable egg through voracious caterpillar to accomplished adult. The first cracks appear in eggshells scattered across dozens of leaves throughout the forest. Tiny mandibles work against barriers that protected developing life for weeks. Soon, pinhead-sized caterpillars will push through into a world that operates by the same rules you once mastered, facing the same challenges you overcame, driven by the same relentless hunger that fueled your own early growth. Some of these new caterpillars carry genetic combinations that include your contributions to the gene pool. Others represent different lineages entirely, but all benefit from the accumulated wisdom of countless previous generations. Each successful atlas moth that completed its life cycle, including you, added to the species' collective knowledge of survival strategies. The forest ecosystem that supported your entire existence continues functioning exactly as it did during your lifetime. The same trees produce the leaves that will feed the next generation of caterpillars. The same predators patrol the same territories, maintaining the selection pressures that keep moth populations healthy and adaptable. The same seasonal cycles create the environmental cues that trigger metamorphosis and adult emergence. But the forest is also constantly changing in subtle ways. New trees establish themselves in gaps left by fallen giants. Plant communities shift gradually in response to climate variations and soil changes. Animal populations fluctuate based on resource availability and predation pressure. The ecosystem you knew intimately during your brief adult flights is already becoming something slightly different. These changes happen slowly from a human perspective, but they're rapid compared to geological timescales. The forest ecosystem is dynamic, constantly adapting and evolving in response to countless environmental pressures. Individual creatures like you experience only brief snapshots of this ongoing transformation, but your genetic contributions help your species adapt to whatever changes the future might bring. New caterpillars begin their feeding frenzies on leaves that grow from soil enriched by your decomposition and that of countless others before you. They face the same fundamental challenges you once conquered: finding enough food, avoiding predators, growing large enough to pupate successfully. but they also face unique conditions that no previous generation encountered, requiring fresh solutions to novel problems. Some of these tiny caterpillars will fail to survive their first week. Others will grow successfully through multiple molts only to fall victim to predators or parasites during their vulnerable later stages. A few will complete the entire transformation cycle, emerging as adults capable of continuing the genetic line that connects back through you to the very origins of the Atlas moth species. The mathematical reality is harsh but necessary. Each successful adult moth must on average replace itself in the next generation for the population to remain stable. This means that hundreds of eggs must be laid for each adult that ultimately emerges, with natural selection eliminating those individuals less capable of surviving the numerous challenges each life stage presents. Your own survival through all these stages was statistically improbable, but not accidental. Every choice you made, which leaves to eat, where to build your cocoon, how to navigate adult social interactions, was influenced by genetic programming refined through millions of years of similar selections. You succeeded where others failed because you carried successful traits from successful ancestors. Now those same traits, mixed and recombined through sexual reproduction, influence the survival chances of caterpillars you'll never see. Some carry your genetic contributions toward improved feeding efficiency. Others inherited your lineage's superior predator avoidance instincts. A few might possess your particular talent for selecting optimal cocoon construction sites. The forest canopy above these developing caterpillars shifts and moves in familiar patterns. Wind creates the same rustling sounds you once used for navigation during your adult flights. Sunlight filters through leaves in patterns that follow the same daily rhythms that once guided your feeding and resting behaviors. The ecosystem continues operating according to rules that transcend any individual creature's existence. Birds still patrol their territories, but their populations have shifted slightly since your adult period. Some species increased due to favorable breeding conditions. Others declined because of resource limitations or increased competition. These changes affect predation pressure on developing moths in ways too complex for any single creature to comprehend, but evolution responds automatically through natural selection. The chemical communication networks that once carried your pheromone messages continue functioning with different participants. Adult atlas moths currently active in the forest use the same molecular languages you once mastered, but they're addressing different territorial and reproductive situations. The communication system persists, even as the individual communicators change completely with each generation. Tree sap continues oozing from wounds and bark, providing the liquid nutrition that sustained your adult existence. But the specific wounds change as branches break and heal, as insects bore new holes, as storms create fresh damage. The resource is constant, but its location and availability shift in patterns that require each generation of adult moths to rediscover optimal feeding sites. Underground, the root systems that supported the trees you knew continue growing and extending. They form connections with fungal networks that facilitate communication and nutrient sharing between plants across vast distances. These relationships existed long before you hatched and will continue long after all memory of your individual existence has vanished, but they provided the foundation that made your life possible. The soil chemistry that determines which plants can thrive in different areas changes gradually as organic matter decomposes and minerals leach through different layers. Your own decomposition contributes to these changes in ways so subtle that no measurement could detect your specific influence, Yet the cumulative effect of all similar contributions shapes the forest's long-term development. Seasonal patterns continue their eternal progression, triggering the same biological responses in current moth populations that once governed your own life cycle. Temperature and humidity fluctuations signal when it's time for caterpillars to pupate, when adults should emerge, when mating flights should begin. These environmental cues operate with the same reliability they showed during your existence. But climate patterns are shifting in ways that create new challenges for developing moths. Temperature ranges that once reliably triggered specific behaviors now sometimes send mixed signals. Seasonal timing that worked perfectly for your generation might be slightly misaligned for caterpillars hatching today. Evolution will eventually adjust for these changes, but the adjustment process isn't without casualties. Some of the new caterpillars beginning their growth spurts carry genetic variations that make them better adapted to these changing conditions. Others possess traits that worked well in your generation but may be less effective in the current environment. Natural selection will determine which variations prove most successful, gradually shifting the species' characteristics toward whatever best serves survival in changing circumstances. The predator populations that once threatened your existence continue their own evolutionary arms races with their prey. Spiders develop new hunting strategies. Birds refine their search patterns. Parasitic wasps evolve more effective host detection abilities. Each improvement in predator effectiveness creates selection pressure for better defensive adaptations in moth populations. Your genetic contributions to the current generation include whatever defensive innovations proved successful during your lifetime. Maybe you carried genes for particularly effective camouflage patterns. Perhaps your lineage possessed superior reflexes for predator avoidance. These traits, if they contributed to your survival and reproduction, now influence the survival prospects of caterpillars you'll never see. The forest's chemical environment continues evolving as plant species respond to herbivore pressure by developing new defensive compounds. Some plants increase the toxicity of their leaves. Others change their nutritional content to make themselves less attractive to caterpillars. These plant defenses create ongoing selection pressure for moths to develop counter-adaptations. Caterpillars that inherit your genetic contributions to digestive efficiency may be better equipped to handle these plant defenses than those from other lineages. Or perhaps your legacy lies in genes that improve the ability to distinguish between nutritious and toxic food sources. Every successful feeding decision you made during your caterpillar stage reflected genetic programming that now influences similar decisions in the next generation. The physical structure of the forest itself changes as trees grow, die, and are replaced. Gaps in the canopy create new microclimates. Fallen logs provide different types of shelter and feeding opportunities. Stream courses shift, altering humidity patterns and plant distribution. The three-dimensional habitat that supported your existence is constantly being remodeled by natural processes. New caterpillars must navigate these changes using the same basic biological equipment you possessed, but they face a slightly different environment that may require novel applications of inherited behaviors. The genetic flexibility that allowed your species to survive previous environmental changes now helps current generations adapt to whatever new challenges the evolving forest presents. Competition between caterpillars remains as intense as it was during your own development. Food resources that seem abundant from a forest-wide perspective are still limited at the scale of individual leaves and branches. The same aggressive feeding behaviors that ensured your survival now play out among hundreds of new caterpillars scattered throughout the forest. Some of these caterpillars benefit from genetic contributions that trace back through your successful lineage. Others represent completely different family trees with their own histories of successful adaptations. The competition between them will determine which genetic combinations prove most effective under current conditions, continuing the evolutionary process that shaped your own existence. The intricate timing that governs metamorphosis continues operating with the same precision that guided your own transformation. Environmental cues trigger hormonal cascades that initiate pupation at exactly the right developmental stage. The same biochemical processes that rebuilt your body inside your cocoon now reshape the bodies of countless developing moths throughout the forest. Each new cocoon that forms represents another attempt to navigate the incredible vulnerability of metamorphosis. Some will succeed, producing healthy adults capable of continuing the reproductive cycle. Others will fail for reasons ranging from genetic defects to environmental stresses to simple bad luck. The success rate remains roughly what it was during your generation, but the specific individuals who succeed are entirely new. The forest ecosystem accepts these new transformations with the same indifference it showed your own metamorphosis. Trees continue growing, regardless of which specific moths pupate on their branches. Seasonal cycles proceed according to astronomical and climatic patterns that dwarf the timescales of individual insect lives. The grand systems that supported your existence continue functioning for the benefit of whoever comes next. Adult atlas moths are emerging somewhere in the forest canopy as you decompose into the soil below. These new adults carry forward genetic wisdom that includes contributions from your successful reproduction, but they face their own unique challenges in an environment that's subtly different from the one you navigated during your brief adult period. Their flight patterns will cover some of the same territories you once patrolled, but they'll encounter different feeding sites, different predator pressures, different potential mates. The chemical communication networks they join will carry messages in the same molecular languages you once used, but the specific content will address current rather than historical situations. The great wheel of forest life continues turning, powered by the same fundamental processes that supported your existence, but carrying forward new combinations of genetic potential into an uncertain future. Your individual story has ended, but your contributions to the larger story continue influencing outcomes in ways too complex to predict or measure. New eggs are being laid on leaves throughout the forest, each one representing another attempt to navigate the impossible journey from microscopic beginning to spectacular adult conclusion. Some of these eggs carry genetic material that traces back through your successful lineage. All of them face the same fundamental challenges that you once conquered through a combination of genetic programming, environmental luck, and behavioral choices. The forest continues its eternal cycles of growth, reproduction, death, and renewal, indifferent to individual stories, but somehow made richer by the accumulated experiences of every creature that successfully navigates its challenges. Your brief existence added something unique to this ongoing tapestry, and that contribution now influences the survival prospects of generations you'll never see. The cycle that claimed you now embraces others. Tiny mandibles work against eggshells throughout the forest, pushing through barriers that protected developing life for weeks. These new caterpillars don't know anything about the adult moth, whose genetic material helped shape their potential, but they carry forward biological wisdom earned through your successful navigation of every impossible stage. The first to hatch faces the same brutal reality you once conquered. It's translucent, barely visible, with a body so small it could disappear on a fingertip. But like you, it's already equipped with everything needed for survival. Its mandibles work perfectly, its legs grip with surprising strength, and its purpose is absolutely clear: consume everything within reach. The leaf beneath it stretches out like the same green continent you once explored. The newly hatched caterpillar doesn't waste time getting oriented. The moment it breaks free, it turns and devours its own eggshell, just as you did. Every bit of nutrition matters when you're this vulnerable, and waste isn't an option in a world where everything wants to kill you. This caterpillar carries genetic contributions from your lineage, though it will never know this. The feeding efficiency genes that helped you survive your early days now influence how quickly this tiny creature can process leaf material. The predator avoidance instincts that kept you alive through countless close calls now guide its defensive behaviors when threats appear, but it also faces challenges you never encountered. The forest has shifted subtly since your time. New chemical defenses in plant tissues make some leaves harder to digest. Climate fluctuations create timing mismatches between when caterpillars need optimal nutrition and when plants provide it. Predator populations have evolved more sophisticated hunting strategies. The caterpillar adapts to these changes using the same basic survival toolkit you once mastered, but with variations that reflect ongoing evolutionary pressures. Its feeding patterns show slight differences from your generation's approach. Its growth rate adjusts to current resource availability. Its defensive behaviors incorporate responses to predator tactics that didn't exist during your lifetime. Competition remains as fierce as ever. Other caterpillars hatch nearby, and they share the same desperate hunger that once drove your own early development. Size still determines access to the best feeding spots, and aggressive behavior still provides advantages in resource competition. The fundamental rules haven't changed, even if the specific circumstances have evolved. Some siblings don't survive their first week. They're too slow, too weak, or simply unlucky in ways that have nothing to do with genetic fitness. Their dried bodies curl up near leaf stems, becoming small contributions to the soil chemistry that will eventually benefit the survivors. Death remains part of the process, as natural and necessary as growth itself. The successful caterpillars grow rapidly, their bodies stretching and expanding with each meal. They molt on schedule, shedding tight skins for larger ones in a process that remains as vulnerable and exhausting as it was during your development. Each molt represents a checkpoint where genetic programming either proves sufficient for survival or fails under environmental pressure. Predators patrol the same territories where they once hunted you, but their techniques have refined through generations of evolutionary arms racing. Birds use slightly different search patterns. Spiders position webs in locations that reflect updated knowledge of prey behavior. Parasitic wasps carry improved host detection abilities developed through countless previous encounters. The caterpillars respond with defensive innovations of their own. Some inherited your lineage's superior camouflage genetics. Others possess enhanced reflexes that help them avoid detection. A few carry genetic combinations that provide resistance to parasitic infections that proved fatal to earlier generations. Natural selection continues its relentless sorting process. Your genetic contributions influence survival outcomes in ways too subtle to observe directly, but profound enough to matter statistically. Maybe caterpillars that inherited your feeding efficiency genes can extract more nutrition from the same amount of leaf material. Perhaps your lineage's predator avoidance instincts provide crucial milliseconds of advantage when escape becomes necessary. The forest canopy above these developing caterpillars shifts through familiar seasonal patterns, but with variations that reflect ongoing climate changes. Temperature ranges that reliably triggered specific behaviors during your lifetime now sometimes send mixed signals. Rainfall patterns that once provided predictable moisture levels now fluctuate in ways that stress both plants and the creatures that depend on them. Some caterpillars adapt better to these changing conditions than others. Those carrying genetic variations that improve temperature tolerance may thrive where others struggle. Thus, individuals with enhanced drought resistance genes might survive dry spells that prove fatal to their siblings. Evolution responds to environmental change through differential survival of traits that prove most effective under new conditions. The chemical communication networks that once carried your adult pheromone messages continue operating with entirely new participants. Current adult atlas moths use the same molecular languages you mastered, but they address different territorial disputes, different mating opportunities, different resource claims. The communication system persists while its users change completely with each generation. Tree sap still oozes from bark wounds, providing liquid nutrition for adult moths currently active in the forest. But the specific wound locations change as branches break and heal, as new insect damage creates fresh opportunities, as storm damage opens different feeding sites. Each generation of adults must rediscover optimal nutrition sources using inherited instincts applied to novel circumstances. Underground, root systems continue their slow expansion through soil enriched by decomposition that includes your own molecular contributions. Fungal networks facilitate communication between plants across distances that dwarf individual insect territories. These connections existed long before any current creature hatched and will persist long after all memory of present generations vanishes. The soil chemistry that determines plant health changes gradually through countless small contributions from decomposing organic matter. Your body added microscopic amounts of specific minerals and nutrients to this ongoing process. The cumulative effect of all such additions shapes forest development in ways no single creature could influence alone, yet every individual contribution matters to the larger pattern. Seasonal cues continue triggering the same biological responses that once governed your life cycle, but with timing that reflects current environmental conditions rather than historical patterns. Caterpillars still pupate when temperature and day-length combinations reach critical thresholds. Adults still emerge when environmental conditions optimize their survival chances. The system adapts automatically to changing circumstances. New cocoons form throughout the forest as caterpillars reach the size and developmental stage that triggers metamorphosis. Each represents another attempt to navigate the incredible vulnerability of transformation. The same biochemical processes that rebuilt your body now reshape these developing creatures, guided by genetic instructions that include contributions from your successful reproduction. Some transformations will succeed, producing healthy adults capable of continuing the reproductive cycle that connects back through you to the species' ancient origins. Others will fail for reasons ranging from genetic incompatibilities to environmental stresses to random developmental errors. The success rate remains roughly constant across generations, but specific individuals who succeed represent entirely new combinations of inherited traits. Adult moths emerge from successful pupations carrying genetic wisdom that includes fragments of your own survival adaptations. They face flight challenges similar to those you once mastered, but in an environment that's subtly different from your adult world. Their navigation systems use the same biological equipment you possessed, applied to territories that have shifted through natural forest succession. These new adults encounter feeding sites that occupy different locations from those you once exploited. They navigate social interactions with contemporaries who share no direct experience with your generation. They establish territories in forest areas that may overlap with your former range, but reflect current resource distribution rather than historical patterns. The predator pressures these adults face include some of the same species that once threatened you, but with hunting strategies refined through intervening generations of evolutionary pressure. Bats use updated echolocation techniques. Birds employ search patterns modified by accumulated experience with moth behavior. Ground predators patrol territories adjusted to current prey distribution patterns. New adults respond to these threats using defensive behaviors that combine inherited instincts with real-time learning. Those carrying your lineage's evasion genetics may show superior escape responses. Individuals inheriting your camouflage adaptations might achieve better concealment during vulnerable daylight periods. The genetic diversity you contributed continues influencing survival outcomes through countless small advantages. Courtship behaviors unfold according to the same fundamental patterns you once followed, but with variations that reflect ongoing sexual selection pressures. Males display wing patterns that include design elements influenced by your genetic contributions. Females evaluate potential mates using criteria that incorporate preferences shaped by your lineage's successful reproductive history. New eggs are laid following successful mating encounters, each one representing another roll of the genetic dice that determines whether beneficial traits get passed to the next generation. Some eggs carry genetic combinations that include your most successful adaptations. Others represent entirely different lineages with their own histories of survival innovations. The forest ecosystem continues functioning according to rules that transcend individual generations while remaining flexible enough to accommodate ongoing evolutionary changes. The same fundamental processes that supported your existence now benefit creatures that share no direct connection to your personal history, but participate in the same ecological networks that made your life possible. Plant communities shift gradually as environmental conditions favor some species over others. These changes affect food availability for developing caterpillars in ways that create new selection pressures. Caterpillars with enhanced digestive flexibility may thrive on novel plant resources. Those carrying genetic limitations inherited from previous generations might struggle with changing food chemistry. The three-dimensional habitat structure continues evolving as trees grow, die, and are replaced by different species. Canopy gaps create new microclimates that favor certain developmental strategies over others. Fallen logs provide shelter opportunities that didn't exist during your lifetime. Stream course changes alter humidity patterns that affect metamorphosis success rates. Competition intensity remains constant across generations, but the specific resources being contested shift with forest succession and climate change. Food sources that provided abundant nutrition during your caterpillar period may be less available now. Optimal pupation sites may have changed location as forest structure evolves. Most adult feeding opportunities may require different flight strategies to exploit effectively. The mathematical reality of reproduction continues operating with the same harsh efficiency that governed your generation. Each successful adult must replace itself in the next generation for populations to remain stable. This means hundreds of eggs must be laid for each adult that ultimately reproduces, with natural selection, eliminating individuals less capable of surviving current challenges. Your genetic contributions now influence these survival statistics in ways too complex to track directly, but significant enough to matter over multiple generations. Traits that proved successful during your lifetime continue affecting survival outcomes through inheritance patterns that spread beneficial adaptations throughout the population while eliminating less effective variations. The eternal wheel of forest life continues turning, powered by the same fundamental energy flows that supported your existence, but channeling that energy through new combinations of genetic potential. Your individual story has concluded, but the larger story of which you were a part continues developing in directions that no single creature could predict or control. New caterpillars feed on leaves that grow from soil enriched by your decomposition, and countless others before you. They face the same basic survival challenges you once conquered, but under specific conditions that require fresh applications of inherited behavioral programming. Some will succeed where others fail, adding their own unique contributions to the ongoing evolutionary experiment. The forest accepts these new attempts at survival with the same indifference it showed your own struggles and triumphs. Trees continue growing according to their own biological imperatives. Seasonal cycles proceed based on astronomical and climatic forces that operate on scales far larger than individual insect lives. The grand systems that made your existence possible continue functioning for whoever comes next. Your brief participation in these eternal cycles added something irreplaceable to the forest's ongoing story. The specific combination of genes, behaviors, and experiences that defined your individual existence will never be repeated exactly, but its influence continues rippling through generations in ways too subtle to measure yet profound enough to matter. The forest remains magnificent and indifferent, beautiful and brutal, supportive and challenging in equal measure. It continues providing the stage for countless individual dramas of survival, transformation, and reproduction. Each story unfolds according to the same fundamental rules while remaining unique in its specific details and outcomes. New eggs cling to leaf undersides throughout the canopy, each containing genetic instructions that include fragments of wisdom earned through your successful navigation of every impossible life stage. The tiny caterpillars developing inside these protective shells will soon face the same brutal challenges that once tested your survival abilities. They carry forward the accumulated biological knowledge of countless successful ancestors, including you, into an uncertain future that will test their adaptations against environmental conditions that continue evolving in unpredictable directions. Some will prove equal to these challenges, others will not. The great sorting process continues. The forest stretches endlessly in all directions, its canopy rustling with the same wind patterns that once guided your adult flights. Sunlight filters through leaves in familiar configurations, though the specific trees creating these patterns have grown and changed since your time. The stage remains essentially constant, while the actors change completely with each generation. Life continues in all its magnificent complexity, indifferent to individual stories, yet somehow enriched by every creature that successfully completes its biological mission. Your contribution to this ongoing tapestry was brief but meaningful, adding genetic diversity and survival innovations that now influence outcomes for generations you will never see. The cycle that began with your emergence from an egg the size of a pinhead continues through new participants who face the same fundamental challenges, using updated versions of the same basic survival strategies. Each generation builds upon the accumulated wisdom of its predecessors while adding its own innovations to the genetic toolkit available for future challenges. Your transformation from tiny caterpillar to spectacular adult moth represents one successful completion of a journey that countless others attempt, but few finish. The fact that you navigated every stage successfully means that your genetic contributions now influence the survival prospects of caterpillars just beginning their own impossible journeys toward metamorphosis and adult reproduction. The forest continues its eternal dance of growth, competition, transformation, and renewal. Individual stories end, but the larger story persists, enriched by every successful participant and strengthened by the genetic diversity that emerges from countless individual attempts to master the challenges of survival in one of Earth's most complex ecosystems. Your existence ends where it began, as part of something infinitely larger than yourself. The forest floor accepts your remains without ceremony, adding your molecular components to the same soil that once supported the plants you devoured as a ravenous caterpillar. Bacteria work through your tissues with methodical efficiency, breaking down the proteins that powered your spectacular adult flights into simpler compounds that tree roots can absorb. Within days, your body has become indistinguishable from the leaf litter that surrounds it. The calcium from your exoskeleton dissolves slowly, providing minerals that will strengthen the cell walls of growing plants. The nitrogen that once formed your flight muscles becomes available to fertilize the leaves that future caterpillars will consume. Nothing is wasted in this system. Every atom that comprised your being finds new purpose in the endless recycling that keeps the forest alive. But death isn't the end of your story. Miles away, scattered throughout the canopy on dozens of different trees, tiny movements begin inside eggs no larger than pinheads. Hairline cracks appear in shells that have protected developing life for weeks. Inside each egg, a microscopic caterpillar pushes against its barrier with mandibles barely visible to the naked eye. These new caterpillars carry genetic instructions that include successful adaptations from your lineage. Some inherit your superior digestive efficiency, the ability to extract maximum nutrition from tough leaf material. Others carry your defensive instincts, the split-second reflexes that helped you avoid countless predators during your vulnerable growth phases. A few possess your particular talent for selecting optimal pupation sites, the mysterious ability to recognize locations that provide perfect protection during metamorphosis. The first to emerge faces exactly the same brutal reality you once conquered. It's translucent, almost invisible, with a body so fragile it seems impossible that anything so delicate could survive. But appearances deceive. This tiny creature already possesses everything needed for survival: sharp mandibles, powerful legs, and an overwhelming drive to consume everything within reach. It doesn't hesitate. The moment it breaks free from its shell, it turns and devours the egg casing completely. This isn't waste disposal, it's strategic nutrition acquisition. Every calorie matters when you're this vulnerable, and the eggshell contains exactly the proteins and minerals needed to fuel initial growth. This behavior, which might seem instinctive, actually reflects genetic programming, refined through millions of years of natural selection. The leaf beneath this new caterpillar stretches away like an endless green landscape. Unlike your generation, which faced relatively stable environmental conditions, this caterpillar emerges into a world experiencing subtle but significant changes. Plant chemistry has shifted as trees develop new defensive compounds in response to herbivore pressure. Temperature patterns fluctuate in ways that disrupt traditional seasonal cues. Predator populations have evolved more sophisticated hunting strategies, yet the caterpillar adapts using the same basic survival toolkit you once mastered. It begins feeding immediately, its tiny mandibles working with precision that belies its size. Each bite removes a microscopic piece of leaf tissue, but the cumulative effect is rapid growth that will soon transform this nearly invisible creature into something formidable. Competition appears within hours. Other caterpillars hatched nearby, and they share the same desperate hunger that once drove your early development. The mathematics of survival haven't changed. There's only enough high-quality food for a fraction of those who emerge. Size determines everything in these early interactions, and aggressive feeding behavior provides crucial advantages in the race to grow large enough to defend territory. Some siblings don't make it through the first week. They're too slow to secure adequate nutrition, too weak to compete with larger caterpillars, or simply unlucky enough to attract predator attention at vulnerable moments. Their bodies become small contributions to the soil chemistry that will eventually benefit the survivors, completing cycles that have operated for millions of years. The successful caterpillars grow with extraordinary speed, their bodies visibly expanding after each feeding session. Their skin tightens as internal pressure builds, creating the conditions that trigger molting, the dramatic process of shedding an outgrown exoskeleton and emerging with a larger, more capable body. This transformation, which happens multiple times during development, represents one of the most vulnerable periods in any caterpillar's existence. During molting, they can't move effectively, can't feed properly, and can't defend themselves from threats. They must find secure hiding spots and remain perfectly still while their bodies complete the complex process of growing new skin and hardening new defensive structures. Many don't survive these crucial periods, falling victim to predators or environmental stresses that healthy, mobile caterpillars could easily avoid. Those that successfully navigate multiple molts develop into impressive creatures that dwarf their initial microscopic proportions. Their bodies grow thick and substantial, equipped with powerful mandibles capable of shredding through the toughest leaves. Prominent tubercles emerge along their sides, giving them an almost alien appearance that helps deter potential predators through intimidation alone. But growth brings its own challenges. Larger caterpillars require exponentially more food than their smaller siblings, forcing them to range across greater territories and take greater risks to secure adequate nutrition. They become visible to predators that ignore tiny caterpillars. Birds that find small prey not worth the effort will definitely pursue something packed with protein and large enough to provide a substantial meal. The caterpillars develop sophisticated defensive behaviors in response to these escalating threats. When confronted by potential predators, they rear up on their back legs, displaying their full size and the intimidating spikes along their bodies. Their heads weave back and forth in patterns designed to startle attackers and create confusion that might provide crucial seconds for escape. These defensive displays work surprisingly often. Many predators hesitate when faced with prey that appears confident and potentially dangerous. That moment of uncertainty can mean the difference between life and death for a caterpillar that's learned to project strength even when facing overwhelming odds. The forest ecosystem responds to these growing caterpillars in complex ways. Plants increase production of defensive chemicals in areas experiencing heavy herbivore pressure. Some trees develop tougher leaves that require more energy to digest. Others alter their nutritional content to make themselves less attractive to feeding insects. This ongoing evolutionary arms race creates constant pressure for caterpillars to develop counter-adaptations. Predator populations adjust their hunting strategies based on current prey behavior patterns. Birds refine their search techniques to account for improved caterpillar camouflage. Spiders position webs in locations that reflect updated knowledge of insect movement patterns. Parasitic wasps evolve more sophisticated host detection abilities that can penetrate even the most effective defensive behaviors. The caterpillars that carry genetic contributions from your lineage may possess subtle advantages in this ongoing struggle. Perhaps they inherited your superior ability to distinguish between nutritious and toxic plants. Maybe they carry genes that improve their capacity to process plant defensive chemicals. Some might possess enhanced reflexes that provide crucial milliseconds of advantage when escape becomes necessary. These advantages aren't obvious to casual observation, but they matter enormously when survival margins are measured in percentages rather than absolute terms. A caterpillar that can extract 5% more nutrition from the same amount of leaf material gains significant advantages in growth rate and competitive ability. One that reacts 10% faster to predator threats dramatically improves its survival prospects over time. As caterpillars approach their final molt, their behavior change in ways that reflect preparation for the most dramatic transformation in their existence. Their feeding becomes more selective, focusing on plants that provide specific nutrients required for metamorphosis. They begin showing interest in structural features of their environment, branch angles, bark textures, shelter availability that were irrelevant during their growth-focused earlier stages. The urge to pupate builds gradually, starting as subtle restlessness and developing into overwhelming compulsion. Caterpillars that seemed perfectly content feeding in one location suddenly become nomadic, traveling impressive distances in search of something they can't consciously identify but will recognize when they find it. This search behavior represents one of the most dangerous periods in any caterpillar's existence. Moving across unfamiliar territory exposes them to predators they haven't learned to avoid. Climbing to new locations requires energy that could otherwise support continued growth. The entire process seems counterproductive from a survival perspective, yet it's absolutely essential for successful reproduction. When a caterpillar finally locates its ideal pupation site, the selection appears almost magical. The chosen location provides optimal combinations of structural support, environmental protection, and microclimate conditions that will prove crucial during the vulnerable metamorphosis period. How caterpillars evaluate these complex variables using their relatively simple nervous systems remains one of the mysteries of insect biology. Construction of the cocoon begins immediately once a site is selected. The caterpillar's silk glands, which remained dormant throughout its feeding phases, suddenly activate to produce thread of extraordinary strength and versatility. This isn't the simple silk used for basic attachments during earlier development. This is engineering material capable of supporting complex three-dimensional structures. The cocoon building process unfolds with precision that seems impossible for a creature operating on pure instinct. Each strand must be positioned exactly, each anchor point carefully selected, each structural element integrated into a design that will protect the vulnerable metamorphosis while providing escape routes for the eventual adult emergence. Hours pass as the caterpillar weaves its protective fortress, pausing only to reposition itself for better leverage or to test the integrity of completed sections. The work is exhausting, consuming energy reserves accumulated over months of intensive feeding, but it cannot be rushed or simplified. A poorly constructed cocoon means certain death during the transformation process. As construction nears completion, the caterpillar's body begins changing in ways that reflect preparation for the most remarkable biological process on Earth. Internal systems that supported months of growth and feeding start shutting down permanently. Digestive organs that processed tons of plant material begin dissolving. Muscle groups that powered endless locomotion start breaking down into component amino acids. These changes aren't destructive, they're preparatory. The caterpillar's body is being systematically dismantled so that its raw materials can be recycled into something entirely different. Cells that formed the caterpillar's structure will be reorganized into wings, antennae, reproductive organs, and sensory systems that bear no resemblance to their original configurations. The final threads seal the caterpillar inside its silk fortress, cutting off all connection to the external world. No light penetrates the thick cocoon walls. No sound reaches the creature suspended in its center. For the first time since hatching, the caterpillar exists in complete sensory isolation, totally dependent on the biological processes unfolding within its own body. Metamorphosis begins with the dissolution of everything that made the creature a caterpillar. Its powerful mandibles soften and disappear. Its legs lose their grip and fade away. Its simple eyes close forever. The voracious feeding machine that conquered every challenge of caterpillar existence melts into organic soup that will be rebuilt according to an entirely different blueprint. New structures begin forming from this biological raw material. Wing buds that existed only as tiny bumps on the caterpillar's body expand into complex flight membranes. Compound eyes develop from simple light sensors. Reproductive organs appear where digestive systems once operated. An entirely different nervous system assembles itself from the dissolved components of the old one. The transformation process operates on multiple timescales simultaneously. Some changes happen within hours, the breakdown of obsolete organ systems and the initial formation of replacement structures. Others require days or weeks, the intricate development of wing patterns, the precise calibration of sensory organs, the integration of new neural pathways that will control completely different behaviors. Chemical signals orchestrate this impossible reorganization with precision that defies human understanding. Hormones trigger cascading changes in gene expression that activate biological programs dormant since the creature's initial development. Proteins manufactured according to these new instructions begin building body parts that never existed during the caterpillar phase. Meanwhile, the forest continues its eternal rhythms around the motionless cocoon. Seasons shift subtly in the tropical climate, bringing changes in rainfall and temperature that affect the timing of development. Other creatures go about their daily business of feeding, reproducing, and avoiding predators, unaware that something extraordinary is happening just meters away. The cocoon itself becomes part of the forest ecosystem during this extended transformation period. Lichens begin growing on its outer surface. Small insects investigate it as potential shelter or food source. Birds occasionally perch on nearby branches, perhaps sensing something interesting, but unable to identify what lies hidden within the silk walls. Inside, the metamorphosis reaches its climactic phase. The creature that was once a caterpillar no longer exists in any meaningful sense. What remains is a collection of developing organ systems that will soon integrate into something capable of flight, reproduction, and survival in an entirely different ecological niche. Wings reach their full size while still compressed and folded within the tight confines of the cocoon. Antennae develop their full sensitivity to chemical signals that will guide navigation and social interaction. Reproductive organs mature in preparation for the brief but crucial adult phase that justifies the entire transformation process. The new nervous system begins generating patterns of electrical activity that will eventually support consciousness, though in a form completely different from whatever awareness the caterpillar possessed. New instincts replace old ones. Behaviors adapted for crawling and chewing give way to programs optimized for flying and mating. The creature's entire relationship with its environment is being rewritten at the most fundamental level. Final preparations begin as the transformation nears completion. Specialized enzymes start dissolving predetermined weak points in the cocoon structure, creating exit routes that will allow the adult to escape when emergence becomes necessary. Chemical signals in the developing brain prepare for the shock of returning consciousness after weeks of suspended animation. The forest waits patiently for this emergence, as it has waited for countless billions of similar transformations throughout its evolutionary history. Trees continue their slow growth toward the canopy. Seasonal cycles proceed according to astronomical forces that dwarf individual insect lifespans. The great systems that support all forest life maintain their steady operation, ready to welcome whatever emerges from the Silk Fortress. Your genetic contributions, scattered among dozens of developing pupae throughout the forest, continue influencing outcomes in ways too subtle to observe directly but significant enough to matter over multiple generations. Some cocoons contain individuals that inherited your superior navigation abilities. Others harbor pupae carrying your lineage's enhanced predator detection instincts. A few protect developing adults with genetic combinations that include your most successful survival innovations. The first emergence happens without warning. A tiny crack appears in silk that has remained intact for weeks. Light penetrates the absolute darkness for the first time since pupation began. The creature inside responds with instincts it has never used before, pushing against the weakened structure with movements that combine delicacy and power in ways its caterpillar form never could have achieved. The adult that pushes through this opening bears no resemblance to the caterpillar that created the cocoon. Its wings are soft and compressed, folded in configurations that allow them to fit within the tight space. Its antennae twitch as they encounter chemical information that its transformed sensory system can process in ways impossible for its previous incarnation. Its legs work according to entirely new principles, designed for gripping and positioning rather than endless locomotion. The emergence process is exhausting in ways completely different from caterpillar fatigue. This isn't the simple tiredness that comes from physical exertion. It's the profound exhaustion of being reborn, of every system in the body activating simultaneously after weeks of dormancy. The adult hangs motionless on the branch that supported its cocoon, waiting for biological processes to complete the final stages of development. Wings begin expanding immediately upon contact with air, inflating like biological balloons as fluid pumps through delicate veins. The transformation from compressed tissue to broad flight surfaces happens gradually but visibly, with intricate patterns emerging as the membranes stretch to their full dimensions. Colors intensify, eye spots become defined, complex designs achieve their final configurations. The hardening process that follows wing expansion is crucial for survival. The soft, vulnerable membranes must stiffen into rigid structures capable of supporting the adult's weight during flight. This chemical transformation happens automatically, but requires time that the newly emerged adult must spend in motionless vulnerability, unable to defend itself or escape from threats. Hours pass before the wings reach flight-ready condition. During this critical period, the adult experiences the world through sensory organs that operate by completely different principles than those it possessed as a caterpillar. Compound eyes process visual information in ways that reveal patterns and colors invisible to its previous form. Antennae detect chemical messages that carry meaning its transformed brain can interpret without conscious learning. The first experimental wing beats generate sensations unlike anything from the creature's previous existence. Air resistance provides feedback that triggers automatic adjustments in wing angle and beat frequency. The adult's nervous system, rebuilt from the ground up during metamorphosis, processes this information through neural pathways optimized for three-dimensional navigation in an aerial environment. Flight, when it finally comes, represents the ultimate expression of the impossible transformation that began months ago with a microscopic caterpillar. The adult launches itself into the forest canopy with movements that coordinate automatically despite having never been practiced. Its wings beat in complex patterns that generate lift, provide directional control, and maintain stability through air currents that would have been meaningless to its ground-based previous incarnation. The forest spreads below like a vast green carpet marked by patterns that make sense only from aerial perspective. Clearings form networks that provide navigation landmarks. Rivers create highways that guide long-distance flight. Different tree species cluster in ways that indicate resource distribution and territorial boundaries relevant to adult survival and reproduction. Other flying creatures share this aerial environment, some potential threats, and others simply going about their own business of survival and reproduction. The adult navigates these interactions using instincts that didn't exist during its caterpillar phase, avoiding predators while seeking the chemical signals that will guide it toward its ultimate biological purpose. The transformation from egg to caterpillar to adult represents one of nature's most extraordinary achievements. The complete reorganization of a living creature from one form to another through processes that seem to violate basic biological principles. Yet it happens millions of times each year in forests around the world, each instance adding to the genetic diversity and evolutionary flexibility that allows species to adapt to changing environmental conditions. Your own successful completion of this impossible journey contributed genetic innovations to the next generation of atlas moths, now beginning their own transformations throughout the forest. Some carry your feeding efficiency genes, others your predator avoidance instincts, still others your talent for selecting optimal pupation sites. These contributions influence survival outcomes in ways too complex to predict, but significant enough to matter over evolutionary timescales. The newly emerged adults face challenges similar to those you once mastered, but in an environment subtly different from your adult world. They must learn to navigate using sensory equipment you once possessed, but applied to territories that have shifted through natural forest succession. Their flight patterns cover some of the same routes you once followed, but adjusted for current resource distribution and predator activity. The chemical communication networks these adults join operate according to the same molecular principles you once used, but carry messages addressing current rather than historical situations. Territorial boundaries reflect present population densities rather than past arrangements. Mating opportunities develop according to contemporary social dynamics that have evolved since your generation's reproductive period. Yet the fundamental biological imperatives remain constant across generations. Adults must feed to maintain their energy reserves. They must avoid predators that view them as substantial, protein-rich meals. Most importantly, they must locate appropriate mates and successfully reproduce before their brief adult lifespan expires. These challenges created the selection pressures that shaped your own genetic makeup and continue influencing the survival prospects of current populations. The forest ecosystem that supported your entire existence continues operating according to the same basic principles while accommodating the constant turnover of individual participants. Trees maintain their slow growth toward the canopy. Seasonal cycles provide environmental cues that trigger biological responses in current moth populations. Predator-prey relationships continue their evolutionary arms races through new combinations of participants. Plant communities shift gradually as environmental conditions favor some species over others, creating new challenges and opportunities for developing caterpillars. Some inherit genetic flexibility that allows them to exploit novel food sources. Others carry digestive limitations that may prove problematic as plant chemistry evolves in response to herbivore pressure. The soil beneath the forest canopy continues accumulating organic matter from countless individual contributions, including your own molecular remains. This ongoing enrichment supports plant growth that feeds the next generation of caterpillars, creating cycles of nutrient transfer that connect all forest life across temporal and spatial scales that dwarf individual lifespans. New cocoons form throughout the canopy as current caterpillars reach the developmental stage that triggers pupation. Each represents another attempt to navigate the incredible vulnerability of metamorphosis, using genetic instructions refined through millions of years of natural selection. Some will succeed, others will fail, but the aggregate outcome maintains population stability while providing raw material for ongoing evolutionary adaptation. The mathematical reality of reproduction continues operating with the same efficiency that governed your generation. Each successful adult must replace itself in the next generation for populations to remain stable. This means that hundreds of eggs must be laid for each adult that ultimately reproduces, with natural selection eliminating individuals less capable of surviving current environmental challenges. Your genetic contributions now influence these survival statistics through inheritance patterns that distribute beneficial traits throughout the population while eliminating less effective variations. Traits that proved successful during your lifetime continue affecting outcomes through genetic combinations that appear in descendants you will never see, but whose survival prospects are enhanced by your successful navigation of every life stage. The eternal cycle of birth, growth, transformation, reproduction, and death continues its ancient rhythm, indifferent to individual stories, yet somehow enriched by every successful participant. Your brief existence added something unique to this ongoing process: genetic innovations, survival strategies, and reproductive success that now influence the biological potential of future generations. The forest remains magnificent in its complexity and beautiful in its indifference to individual fate. It provides the stage for countless personal dramas of survival and transformation while maintaining the stable environmental conditions that make such dramas possible. Each story unfolds according to species-specific biological imperatives while remaining unique in its specific details and outcomes. New eggs are being laid on leaves throughout the canopy as current adults complete their reproductive cycles. Each contains genetic instructions that include fragments of successful adaptations from countless previous generations, including your own. The caterpillars developing inside these protective shells will soon face challenges similar to those you conquered, but under environmental conditions that continue evolving in response to climate change, forest succession, and evolutionary pressures. Life as an atlas moth is brutal, magnificent, and absolutely impossible, Yet here you are, proof that the impossible happens millions of times every year. From that first bite of your own eggshell to your final breath on a forest branch, every moment served a purpose larger than your individual existence. You survived what most don't, transformed beyond recognition, reproduced successfully, and became part of something infinitely greater than yourself. Your story ends, but the forest continues, carrying forward the genetic wisdom you earned through your own remarkable journey, from microscopic beginning to spectacular conclusion. Here you can find the next video. Until then, see you soon.